What's kicking, everybody? We are back for another episode of Pickin Fights. I'm Keith, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how are you today?
Ooh, we got a little banged up last night with the UFC event. There's a lot of upsets, a lot of things that didn't go the way that me, you, a lot of the other YouTube bettors, a lot of the Nostradamuses out there didn't see coming. So on to the next week.
Yeah, last night felt like football night in America when like Mike Florio and all those guys get on TV, and when like I'm sure it'll happen tonight. I think it's Bills Packers is the primetime game tonight. It'll be one of those ones when like the Bills are the logo that pops up for everybody's pick, and then somehow the Packers get it done. So it definitely felt like one of those football night in America kind of nights, because there were Trayshawn Gore with that crazy guillotine. Oh my God, what was that, bro? That was insanity. Is he just that strong?
He looked like he was trying to break his neck off of the guy's body, like putting the guillotine and then up against like the cage like that and then ripping him around. Like that was just, he big brothered him.
Yeah, and Josh Friend was like basically being ragdolled. Like his legs were off the ground, and the only thing that was holding him, like outside of gravity, was Trayshawn Gore's bicep.
Yeah.
There was that. Chase Hooper just getting knocked down, and then finished
3 times in the first minute.
Yeah, it was crazy. Chase Hooper, he's probably on his way out at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he had that impressive win a couple of months ago, but that was obviously very grappling dominant. And at 23, 24 years old, his striking is not evolved to where it needs to be able to have that level just to be competitive on the UFC stage. I mean, when it comes to his striking, like clearly if, what was it? Garcia who was fighting?
Yes.
So if you're fighting a guy like Steve Garcia and, you're getting dropped 3 times in the first round, not first round, in the first minute, that says a lot about your striking and where it's at. And, it's nowhere where it needs to be. Like, I mean, even Khabib, he had to thread the takedown, which made his striking that much more unpredictable. And that's why it was beneficial. That's why he was able to knock down Conor McGregor. But Chase Hooper doesn't have necessarily that fear in his grappling game that translates to getting the benefit in his striking. So either he's got to really make sure that striking game gets up to par, or he becomes a lot more scary on his back. And he looked good with, I wanted to give him that nickname of the octopus, because he's, just kind of wrapping his tentacles around people. But that is not the Chase Hooper that we saw last night. And, I think a lot of times a lot of people forget these guys are people, who knows, like if his girlfriend, wife, whatever, something happened, leading in fight camp before that day, came out, was off. They're people, they're dealing with shit just like us. Maybe he got a bill that was higher than he expected, and that just kind of threw his shit off. But I don't know. Either way, he's been a fun experiment. But yeah, I don't know. Our boy Infrago was saying that Jared Vandera and Chase Hooper should probably be cut following that. And you look at those two guys' record. Jared Vandera is on a 5-fight losing streak against guys who aren't that good. And Chase Hooper is, I think, 1-4 over his last 5, or 1-3 over his last 4, something not great like that. So really hard to keep up that status as the best premier promotion if you're having guys who are 1-4, 0-5 on that slide.
Yeah, absolutely. The last one that we got wrong and everybody else got wrong, but it was due to an injury, was at the main event. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, like, I guess technically when it comes to betting, like you do lose that, but ultimately, like it was a knee injury. You know what I mean? And it was in the second round. Yeah. So we were saying too that Calvin Kattar's path to victory is he may get beat up in the first round, maybe even a little bit in the second round, but we're going to see as the fight gets later on that's where he starts to take over. So before he had a chance to implement his game plan is unfortunately when the knee injury had, it's a lot like Tom Aspinall,
right.
You just this is what I think is going to happen, and it very well could have. And just before it had his chance, knee's done.
I can't wait for Tom Aspinall to come back.
It's going to be some time, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be a while. Torn everything in his knee, basically blew the whole thing up. I also watched the end of the Anderson Silva Jake Paul fight last night.
Right.
It was just a spectacle. I don't really agree with the judges' scorecards. I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing, but for the rounds that I watched, it was like, all right, like this is definitely a little bit leaning towards Mr. Paul. But I mean, he did knock down Anderson Silva cleanly at the end of that fight, which was pretty
I heard.
and all the things that Anderson Silva threw at him, who's an all-time GOAT. There were a lot of moments when like they would clinch, and just as they're breaking apart, Anderson Silva would hit him with an uppercut on the break, and Jake Paul was getting his head snapped back by a few of them.
Nice,
but he stayed standing the whole time, and was eating everything that was given to him, and say what you want, 40-year-old man, or Jake Paul not fighting real boxers, whatever, but. He's slowly moving up and fighting more credible fighters. But the most important thing that I think came out of that was the guy in our logo. I don't know if you saw the little scuffle that took place when he slapped Jake Paul's dad backstage.
No, I didn't see that. I didn't even hear about this.
He smacked Jake Paul's dad and then like stormed out of the arena. And Jake Paul called him out for his next fight now that he's like out of UFC contract. So
fuck it, I'd watch it. I'd watch that more than the Anderson Silva. The Anderson Silva fight, like no matter what they tell me, I don't think there was that much hype around it. It just didn't feel like people were talking about it much. But Nate Diaz is always going to have hype around it, and I think Jake Paul maybe needs to rely on something else to build a fight. I mean, being a nice guy clearly doesn't build a fight the way that you want, and respect is great, and Anderson Silva deserves all the respect that Jake gave him. But that's not going to get eyeballs for people who aren't necessarily interested in Jake Paul fighting for Jake Paul fighting.
Right.
They may be interested in Anderson Silva and how that lines up, but people tune in to fighting because they want conflict. And when the fighter's like, no, he's a great guy, this and that, whatever, it's like there's a piece missing there. And unlike other sports, NFL, MLB, where that's kind of sportsmanship is known, in fighting, it's like we butt heads leading up to the fight to get people to want to watch, to make this a spectacle, and then afterwards it's where we show respect, and it's like, hey, listen, we're building a fight, this and that. And honestly, I don't care if that's just to build the fight or if it's actually deep rooted or whatnot. I think it's more entertaining when you have those conflicts and that sparring and the verbal things and this and that. And I think he'll definitely get that with Nate. So I think Jake Paul is gonna find out that, and we may not find this out, but I don't think that pay-per-view sold too well. So I think that they're going to try and definitely go after Nate, want to have that type of hype surrounding it. And then, just to Jake Paul's credit, this is a guy who clearly, not a boxer by trade, but he beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., a guy who was the welterweight champion of the world, WBC welterweight champion of the world at one time, the son of Julio Cesar Chavez, the Julio Cesar Chavez. So, that's not nothing in terms of a win. So to get a win over a guy who was a win over a guy like that, then listen, I don't think anyone could talk shit about Jake and his skills.
Right. Absolutely.
He could definitely be a professional boxer, maybe not a champion, but perhaps he's only been in it for 2 or 3 years, right? So who knows? He's got the best trainers.
He definitely shows flashes. Like he has a really good body jab. He'll go like 1-2 to the body, come up top. Those look really good. There are moments though when he's just like throwing everything into a punch, like just wildly.
You can tell the inexperience at times.
Yeah, and I think if he was fighting somebody who was, a legitimate like professional boxer, then maybe he'd get caught with those. But the power is real for him too. So maybe they'd be more focused on just avoiding that than countering. But with all that being said, you said it perfectly about Nate Diaz and the hype that would be there because. Not to like take a Chael Sonnen angle, but the hype is already built in. Right. Like whether he wanted to or not, Nate Diaz just secured himself the biggest payday and the most hype by smacking Jake.
Why would Nate be there if he wasn't trying to secure something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. But he did leave the arena right after that happened.
He always does that. He always does that with people he's trying to get a fight with. He'll be there leading up to it for the drama, and then he leaves the arena because then that creates a story. And Nate didn't care about the fight to begin with.
True. Yeah. No, that is a Nate move. Yeah. And he smacked his dad, which I think is pretty cool.
I think he was actually, I think it was a Paul fight before that he showed up and then left before the fight.
Maybe.
Like I know Nate has definitely done that before.
Yeah,
it may not even be the second time. It could be like the third or the fourth. But
I hope he gets it, and I hope he gets a big contract, a big payday. And win. That would be great.
I want GSP to do something. He's talking about how he's completely out of his UFC contract. He could do whatever he wants. Good for him, Let him kind of be that middle guy.
Yeah, he used to be an incredible shape. Yeah. All right, well, let's move it on up, and just to remind everybody at home, if you are watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @_Pickin Winners, as well as @Pickin Keith for me and @Pickin Fights Tom for Tom. All right, so we have our prelim notables, and I'm going to start off with mine. I've got a nice little parlay for you. These are 3 fights that I feel very, very confident about. And that is, I'm taking Miranda Maverick. Right now, she's a -500 favorite. Prop bet odds haven't really come out yet. But I like her to win by submission against Shanna Young. Her wrestling is far too good for Shanna Young. She likes to take the back. Shanna Young likes to give up her back. And I like that to be parlayed with Jinyu Frey and Polyana Viana, as well as the fight between Ramona Pascual and Tamiris Vidal. Both of those to go the distance. So that would be Miranda Maverick to win by submission, and then the fight between Jinyu Frey and Polyana Viana, and the fight between Ramona Pascual and Tamiris Vidal to go the distance. Get those odds for you later on in the week. I'll keep you updated on Twitter if you follow me, but that is my prelim lock. I feel really, really good about that parlay. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I like that a lot. You took my rule right away from me on my women's fights outside of a few select characters, usually going the distance. Miranda Maverick does have a lot of finishes on her record, and Shanna the Animal, the Shanimal, doesn't have a lot of impressive performances either to boast. So I like that, and the other 2 going to decision. I think there's a lot of potentially volume strikers and maybe some inexperience in those other fights, and I just don't lead. That doesn't lead me to think that they're going to end up in being finishes or someone getting a flash knockdown or a submission or anything like that. I think you're going to see some tentativeness from a lot of the parties involved, as we do with a variety of female fights. I don't think we're going to see it maybe necessarily at the fight headline in the main card now. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Those were actually my prelim notables too. It was the 2 women's fights to go the distance, and then Miranda Maverick actually to win by submission. Because it's exactly what you were saying. Shanna the Animal gives up her back often, and then Miranda Maverick is someone who's accomplished on the ground, can take the back really well, and we've seen that backpacking style really kind of come into its own in the UFC more recently, especially with Aljamain being champion. So every reason to think that Miranda Maverick's going to get that one done and within the distance.
All right, nice. You got any more, or we're just going with those 3?
Looking through, I am interested in the Jake Hadley versus Carlos Candelario fight. Jake Hadley was on the Contender Series, or the Ultimate Fighter, rather. Contender Series. But he fought Mitch Raposo, who was a guy who was on the Ultimate Fighter, got his win to get into the UFC off of Mitch Raposo. Took a loss to Alan Nascimento Ferreira in, I believe, his first fight in the UFC. I'm willing to let that go more times than not for guys' first fights in the UFC. He's an accomplished prospect coming out of England, a lot of hype behind him. A lot of these British English fighters are coming into the UFC now with a lot of hype around them. And Carlos Candelario has been just a little bit underwhelming. On the Contender Series, he had a split decision with Victor Altamirano, ended up not getting a contract there, but ended up getting a contract a little bit after that, 5 or 6 months, and 4 months ago lost to Tatsuro Taira, who I think they threw Carlos Candelario in there just as somebody for Tatsuro to go and kind of style against. So it was good for Candelario to have that go to a decision, but it really wasn't all that competitive. And I think Jake Hadley is going to come in here with something to prove after getting his loss. He wants to get his musto back. And so I'm going to take Jake Hadley to get that one done.
Yeah, I like the Jake Hadley pick. I like a lot of the British fighters coming on the scene right now. I'm a big fan of the majority of them. I mean, I'm not just going to like somebody because they're British, but a lot of the hype around them, the fans, the way that the fans embrace them is fun. The styles that they bring to the table, majority like kickboxing, and and I like Jake Hadley too. He's good young prospect. All right, so we'll move it on up to the main card then. This is a little bit of a sleeper card. Actually, this one opens with Jailton Almeida versus Maxim Grishin.
Perfect. Even better.
All right. So at least that's what Tapology has it as for now. I mean, we know that these things change as the week goes on. I like Jailton Almeida. Pretty new, in terms of like, UFC mileage. Came out of the Contender Series. Brazilian, great jiu-jitsu. He's a Brazilian with great jiu-jitsu. He's very comfortable in his full guard, even if his opponents are standing. And if they're close enough to him, then he just tries to like wrap up legs, go for leg locks. He's really good at using all four limbs and, just trying to wrap things up from his full guard. He has really nice outside trips when he's standing and body lock takedowns to bring opponents to the ground. Not only is he good at jiu-jitsu, but he's also a really good wrestler too. He's good at like controlling somebody, and he could win a fight entirely by control time, a la Dagestani wrestler, but prefers to go for the finish because he's also got really good hands and can land shots off of his feet, but he does love to take the back and go for rear naked chokes. That seems to be his submission of choice. He's really good at getting those hooks in and, sinking that choke in very well. And it looks near impossible to escape. He's just a really well put together fighter. He's an overall physical specimen. Like, he doesn't look like he has an ounce of body fat on him. So for all those reasons, I'm rolling with Jailton Almeida this week to beat Maxim Grishin. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, this is a fight that's been previously scheduled before, and I believe Maxim Grishin had pulled out, and then that's why Jailton Almeida ended up fighting Parker Porter. There's a guy who's fought at 205. He's fought at catch weight, I think, at 220. He's fought at 265. He's fought all over. When he's at 205, he's a lean 205. When he fights at 265, he uses that strength to out-grapple people. He is a very, very strong grappler, being from Brazil, obviously, but everyone's going to have a little bit of that base to a certain degree. But what we're seeing with Jailton Almeida is that he's gone out there and he's been impressive against everybody he's fought, no matter the weight. And I think coming in here against Maxim Grishin, who's a guy who's 38 years old, definitely has some wear and tear on the treads. With 39, 40, 41, 42. I think this is going to be his 43rd UFC MMA fight. Only got to the UFC a little bit while ago. And this is a guy who's also fought all over the map. But, when you see his physique at 206, Maxim Grishin is just, he looks like a guy who's 38. He looks like a guy like, Stipe Miocic, who is going to make the 265-pound weight class, but he's going to be like 230, 240-ish, kind of got that like 38-year-old like dad flab a little bit body. Not saying that these guys can't go out there and get it done. Power is the last thing to go. And Grisham is good in a lot of different areas, especially his fight IQ. But I just think at these points in their career, facing a 31-year-old Jailton Almeida, who has everything to prove his entire career in front of him and a really strong grappling game. He's went out there against, everyone that he's fought and basically just had the same game plan. I'm going to come after you. I'm going to get you on the ground. I'm going to be intelligent, and I'm going to slow and methodically get you to a submission. Anton Turkolaj, he came in, was 8-0, submission by rear naked choke. Parker Porter, who's not the biggest, not the best and the brightest that the UFC has to offer, but on short notice, Parker Porter stepped in. They moved it to 265, and Jailton Almeida was able to handle that power, or not power, but that weight rather, and get a submission rear naked choke on Parker Porter. Knocked out Danilo Marquez via ground and pound in the first round. Nasruddinov. So you could tell kind of maybe what that fighter's approach is just by his name and the amount of consonants and vowels, and the fact that basically the first name and the last name are the same name. Going out there against guys like that who are going to specialize in grappling, and Jailton Almeida just kind of makes him look silly. So for all of those reasons, I'm going Jailton Almeida, getting it done by submission over Maxim Grishin, despite the fight IQ. Power and the strength really is going to be too much.
Yeah, super lock. I feel good about this pick a lot. I like Jailton Almeida quite a bit. All right, next one up, we've got Mark O. Madsen, the Olympian, versus KGD Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson is the favorite in this one. I believe he's like a minus 200 as opposed to Mark Madsen's like plus 170-ish. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually leaning towards Marco Madsen this week. Excuse me. Because of his wrestling. He is the Olympian, Olympic medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling. His style is very annoying if you're not like a big fan of just, watching a 15-minute wrestling match when it's supposed to be a UFC fight, but whatever. That's what he tries to make every fight, is just let me control, he doesn't even really try to ground and pound. It's just transition into different positions so that he doesn't get stood up by a guy like, Herb Dean or Mark Goddard, who like to keep the activity going. But his stand-up is actually pretty solid. He looked good in his last fight against Vince Pichel. And, anytime he got resistance or found an opening, he just went for a takedown. And he shoots really well. He's the Olympian. He's an Olympic medalist in wrestling. So you can't deny his wrestling. Grant Dawson's good, but, I'm really just rolling with the underdog money here that Mark Madsen has the ability to get it done with that smothering wrestling that he brings to the table. So that's what's making me go with him this week. What do you got, Tom? What are you thinking in this fight?
Yeah, I'm opposite of you. I think Grant Dawson is a lot more versatile. I think he definitely has some solid grappling of his own. He's got some better ground and pound, I think, than Mark Madsen does. Mark Madsen has historically been a decision fighter. Basically for the last 3 years after his fight with Danilo Bellardo, getting that one by ground and pound. Watching that Vince Pichel fight, Vince Pichel is not the youngest spring chicken out there. And that one, went to a decision. And, I think it was a little like Mark Madsen won, but I'm not going to go out on the line there to say that, it was very clear. I think it was a pretty close fight, and Vince Pichel put up more of a fight than maybe we were expecting to. Getting that split decision over, an older Clay Guida with 56 fights on his record. And at 38 years old for Mark Madsen to be coming in here, I just think there's a little bit more questions. Like, yeah, he is the Olympian, but he got that nickname because I think he got like bronze or silver. Not to like discredit that, but also, MMA and wrestling, a lot of people still believe that wrestling is the best base for MMA. And I think there's really a good case to be had for that. But when it comes to Mark Madsen and his specific reliance on wrestling, and then up against a guy, listen, Clay Guida is very, kind of funky and different, and he plays really well in the scrambles, and I think that's why Mark Madsen had such an issue with him. I think Grant Dawson is going to follow a very similar game plan where he's got that grappling base. He's going to try and be really frisky and different and funky and just force those scrambles so where you can get Mark Madsen in an uncomfortable position. If he can keep it standing, Grant Dawson is definitely going to have the advantage. I think this one's going to ultimately go to decision. I don't see Mark Madsen finishing Grant Dawson, and I think Grant Dawson is maybe going to have a much more difficult time trying to get that finish on Mark Madsen if it is on the ground. I don't know if there's going to be a submission there. Mark Madsen tends to stay pretty safe. And I don't know if Grant Dawson's going to be able to ground and pound him. And perhaps this is all with the caveat that nobody gets hurt, right? Like back to what we were seeing Calvin Kattar, this most recent fight yesterday, gets his knee blown out in the second round. And obviously that's going to be technically a TKO win for Arnold Billy Allen. But barring anything like that happening here, I think Grant Dawson is the younger fighter, the more well-rounded fighter. I don't know if he's necessarily the stronger in terms of having more muscle mass, but I think he is, adept at the ground. He's got a better advantage on the feet. And, I think he's got further to go in his UFC career. And I think Mark Madsen at this point, 38 years old in the UFC's most competitive division, it's going to be a really hard path to see him get a belt. I think Islam is better than him when it comes to wrestling too. So, Mark Madsen is kind of boxed out from getting that UFC title shot, that UFC belt wrapped around his waist. So for all those reasons, I'm gonna go with Grant Dawson, the favorite here.
Yeah, I don't see Mark Madsen ever coming near UFC gold, but whatever.
Well, yeah, and sometimes that can have an effect on somebody's potential motivations. Where Grant Dawson, being 28 years old and stylistically not a bad matchup for him. He knows what Mark Madsen's going to do to him, so there's no question marks there. Force those scrambles, kind of do what Clay Guida was able to do to Mark Madsen and be a little bit more powerful. I think he can steal that. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I mean, maybe I don't. It's not even like a steal. Grant Dawson's the
no, yeah, not steal, but I mean,
Yeah, I'm seeing.
I don't mean steal away, but you can get out of there with the win just by doing, I think, a couple of things and mirroring that Clay Guida fight.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Marco Madsen could potentially go, 2 rounds to 1 if he just
that could
Grant Dawson. That's kind of where I'm leaning.
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me. Next up, Tagir Ulanbekov versus Nate Maness. Just a couple things to say about this one for me. Nate Maness cutting a lot of weight, going down to 125 in this fight. Usually leads to chin issues, cardio issues. Maybe he misses weight entirely, and then there's a mental thing that comes with that. So I'm rolling with Tagir Ulanbekov. You said it before. He's the runt of the Dagestanis. And, is he Dagestani? Either way, he's got, like you said, the vowels, ends in a V, all over the place. I'm rolling with Tagir Ulanbekov to get it done against Nate Maness. Nothing he's done has particularly impressed me. He's a good fighter, but I'm rolling with Tagir, especially with the weight cut. That's the biggest thing for me here. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov, a few months ago when he faced Nate Maness, I think it was a 30-25 decision, which you don't very often get 10-8s, let alone 2 in one fight. There's total domination from Umar Nurmagomedov. And when you move down in weight classes at 31 years old, that's not necessarily signaling that you're doing great in the current division that you're leaving. So you have that. He got the win over Tony Gravely. At this point, Nate Maness going. There's a lot of question marks with him going from 35 down to 25. This is a fighter who's fought at 55 and 45 before, 45 and 35 inside of the UFC. I think he fought a catchweight bout at 140 before. So Nate Maness going down to 25, standing at 5'10", coming in at 125. That is going to be a dude who is not going to have much muscle mass on him, and if he is able to make that weight with no issues, I think the rehydration process is going to potentially lead to cardio issues. And you go against a guy like Tagir Ulanbekov, and the reason that I think that he had some struggles in his last fight against Tim Elliott was because there was a lot of glove grabbing on the part of Tim Elliott, and Tagir Ulanbekov was complaining to Khabib instead of complaining to the referee. But with that being said, I think that's something that they probably worked in back in the Dagestani headquarters about how to avoid or what to do if an opponent is grabbing your glove. And, I think at this point, if they're going to be grappling on the ground, that's somewhere where Nate Maness likes to get his fights. He's got a couple finishes on the ground. If there's going to be a grappling match, Nate Maness is going to potentially have the benefit of being that little bit of a bigger guy. But Tagir Ulanbekov being 125 and being with the Dagestanis, I have to believe he is wrestling people who are stronger and bigger than him. So he's going to have that experience as well. If there's no glove grabs, I like the health and the longevity and the experience of Tagir Ulanbekov at 125 pounds in a grappling match against Nate Maness. And he hasn't been bad on his feet, but don't get it wrong. He is not the upper echelon of that Dagestani crew.
Yeah, definitely not. I like that you said Dagestani headquarters, though. That's pretty funny.
It is.
Yeah, there is a Dagestani headquarters.
Whatever Khabib's camp is, I don't know if he specifically has a name, but is it not? The headquarters, like he's Coach Khabib now. Everybody refers to him. They worship the ground that he walks on, to the point where Tagir, if he's getting his glove grabbed, he's going, Khabib, he's grabbing my glove. What do I do? Instead of saying, hey, ref, he's grabbing my glove. This is illegal. Like,
right.
Do something. So they defer to Khabib for all things.
Yeah. So, he's like, how like pharaohs were like living gods amongst like the people.
I was just going to compare him to like a cult leader. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's getting pretty close. It's going to be scary. There's going to be like a Dagestani cult in the middle of like the mountains and shit pretty soon. Yeah, I don't know. I might go sign up.
Have you ever seen Wild Wild Country on Netflix?
No.
Yeah, it's about like this dude who he ran like a sex cult or whatever, and found this area for lease, like hundreds of acres in somewhere in like Montana, Michigan, Kentucky, Arizona, New Mexico, one of those just fucking wide open areas. Bought it, had people show up, give him all of their things. They built a fucking airport, hotels, like shit. And then they actually started taking over. They offered in cash to buy the people out of the town that they were like a part of. So now they had their own people from the cult who were part of like the housing in the state. And then they start getting into politics and this and that. Like it was literally this little cult that went in there, grew, adopted members, and then started getting into politics and running the
awesome.
and everything. Yeah, it was nuts. So I would definitely recommend watch Wild Wild Country and then be like, could Khabib do this? Are we going to get an influx of wrestlers just taking over towns?
The big thing is, right, sure, maybe he could promise people greatness with like his wrestling, but you said the most important thing at the start of your explanation about that movie, and that's that this guy was running a sex cult. If you promise,
that's true. That's true. Americans like sex, and Khabib does.
A lot of lonely people out there that like have never even like touched another human being.
Yeah.
So, right. If you promise them sex, they're going to go out there. Khabib could maybe promise you like, hey, I'll get your wrestling better, but he will not let you have sex. They are very against premarital sex. I don't even think he's allowed to like take a picture with a woman above the age of 18. So, and you got his little minion Hasbulla getting banned from Instagram. Like, huh?
Yeah, we had to know that was coming, right?
Yeah,
Like,
he got banned. Well, this was a while back, but he got banned from Instagram for a little bit for like, I don't know. I guess they called it like slut shaming some girl for like.
yeah, well, I mean that makes sense. Russians have a totally different moral code than the American moral code
Right.
or societal code or what's okay and not okay to say. I mean, that's why, like, listen, you go over to Abu Dhabi and there's no crime, but like there's also no women driving. So
Yeah.
like you kind of pick your poison with that.
Right. Yeah, because if you commit crime, they chop your hands off.
Yeah, authoritarian. It is a lot different, in an authoritarian government of like, do I want to commit this crime or not? Because I'll have to be fed all of my fingers through my butthole if I do.
Oh boy.
So,
Okay. Well,
not worth it.
speaking of feeding fingers through somebody's butthole, we've got Chase Sherman versus Josh Parisian. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know about feeding fingers with them, but I think somebody's gonna end up going to sleep in this fight, and I think that somebody is gonna be Chase Sherman. He's got a lot more mileage on him at this point, UFC mileage. And while he hasn't really gotten knocked out all that often or that badly, he has taken a lot more damage out of these two guys. You have Josh Parisian coming out of the 2020 Contender Series. He's only fought 4 times in the UFC. He's 2-2 in the UFC, and he's looked decent so far. Looked all right against Ulanbekov. I do like the fact that Josh Parisian, he's a little bit more creative. He's a little bit more risky than a lot of these heavyweights. Moves a little bit better for like a bigger, flabbier guy. But he is risky though, which, in a division where big guys can, just happen to catch somebody and then they go to sleep, or, you leave your chin exposed for a second and it's night. I do like that for an exciting fight this weekend because Chase Sherman is prone to taking a beating from time to time. So go back and watch Josh Parisian with his UFC contender or his Dana White Contender Series fight when he won by spinning back fist, if you haven't seen it. But I'm going with Josh Parisian this week, and I like him to either win, maybe a double chance bet, decision, or KO, TKO, because this is either going to be really exciting and somebody's going to go to bed, or it's going to be really, really boring and slow. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, and that somebody going to bed may be me. Because looking at these two fighters, Chase Sherman is a guy who his only win recently, his 2 wins inside of the UFC. So he's had a couple stints inside of the UFC. His first fight was against Justin Ledet. He lost by a decision. Then he got knocked out by Walt Harris. Got 2 quick wins over guys who aren't in the UFC and don't have much of a name, don't have much value to their name at this point. Then took 3 straight losses to Shamil Abdurakhimov, Justin Willis, and then Augusto Sakai. Then went and did island fights a couple of times, bare knuckle boxing, and then turned around and went back into the UFC in 2020. Fought Ike Villanueva, who is not very good and barely even UFC caliber. I think he may not be. I don't think. I know he's not UFC caliber. He's the type of UFC heavyweight that you go and you watch. This is the top promotion. These are the best 265ers in the world, and it makes you scratch your head. After that Ike Villanueva win, he lost to Andrei Arlovsky, Parker Porter, Jake Collier, Alexander Romanov. Parker Porter and Arlovsky were decisions, and then he started getting finished on the ground, rear naked choke, Americana. He beat Jared Vandera, but Jared Vandera has his own problem of grappling Alexei Olenek and then striking with someone like Chase Sherman, who has absolutely no grappling whatsoever. Josh Parisian is a guy who's okay at both, but most importantly, he has a grappling game and he knows when to use it. And I think he's going to be smart enough to go out and grapple Chase Sherman and get that victory. I don't think both of these guys have it within them to make that final bell. I know they have before, but it just seems like these guys do not have the same drive of those top contenders that we see in the heavyweight division or really across any division. They come in, they look a little bit sloppy, they look far from technical. It's just the bottom of the barrel. And I think sometimes when the UFC trots out heavyweights of this caliber out there, especially on the main card, it brings down the credibility of the whole product. So I don't anticipate as MMA moves forward that we're going to see a ton more of these. bottom of the barrel fights. But yeah, Josh Parisian, I think is going to get the win over Chase Sherman, but neither are particularly, high quality, high caliber
Yeah,
UFC fighter.
definitely not. All right, next one up. Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod versus Neil Magny. All right, D-Rod, couple points about him. Strong hands, good chin, and we're seeing an active D-Rod right now because D-Rod coming off a break, not very good. Eked out a split decision win against Li Jingliang at UFC 279. That was a little bit over a month ago. In the past, so and that was almost a year removed from when he had fought in the UFC before that.
Kevin Lee.
Oh, Kevin Lee, yeah. But before Kevin Lee, there was a long string of activity for D-Rod. So, you look at Daniel Rodriguez and you think like, all right, maybe activity is the best thing for a guy like this. Like he fights, every like 2 months, doesn't absorb a whole lot of damage, dishes out a good amount of damage. So normally I would go with like Neil Magny if Daniel Rodriguez was coming off like a year-long layoff again. But D-Rod coming off a month away, with the chin that he has, the hands that he has, he doesn't really have like a crazy weight cut. I am rolling with Daniel Rodriguez because of the activity, and I think that makes a big difference for him. What do you think about this one, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just looking at my notes here, and a couple points or one extra thing that I wanted to point out about D-Rod is that he is a volume guy. He doesn't have a ton of power, and he, comes in, lands a couple shots, then gets out of range really quickly. And he will throw a couple of leg kicks, but against a guy like Neil Magny, who is going to have, I think he's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage, 2-inch height advantage. Not necessarily the height is that what matters, but it's the reach that he's going to have those long limbs, those long appendages. He's going to be able to be on the outside. He is a little bit more of a technical guy. I think Neil Magny, he has really good straight shots too. So I think he might be able to, and D-Rod is a strong jabber, but when you're going to have a 6-inch reach disadvantage, it's going to be difficult for you to get inside to land those jabs. And especially in a guy who likes being on the outside and fights like a rangy fighter and uses that distance. Just a couple of notes here I have on Neil Magny. He's very lanky, good kickboxing, and he really serves like the real gatekeeper for the division in the UFC. If you can beat a guy like Neil Magny, hey, you're top echelon. If you can't beat Neil Magny, you're probably going to be reserved to no more than the top 10. He's almost made it 2 full rounds fighting off Shavkat Rakhmonov's grappling that he took, I believe, almost on short notice. So, if you're able to hang in there grappling wise with Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think that is, a win in a loss. And I don't expect D-Rod to go out there and grapple him. But if something like that does happen, I'm going to definitely give it to Neil Magny on that. He uses his cardio. He trains at altitude. So no matter how long this fight goes, I'm going to, side more with Neil Magny. And you have D-Rod who, he's coming off of a fight. So I guess he probably went right back into fight camp. But considering that he weighed in at 179 pounds and now he's got to make 170 again after a fight where he got his bell rang by Li Jingliang talking to his corner, being like, oh my God, nobody ever hit me as hard as that guy hit me. I think he, kind of similar to Justin Gaethje, he was talking about he got hit and his like tongue net went numb, or I think he said he felt it in his toes. I may be getting something jumbled, but D-Rod was definitely impressed by the power of Li Jingliang, and now you're giving yourself less than 2 months notice to come back and fight a volume striker like Neil Magny from the outside after cutting more weight than you had to previously. And I think it's arguable to say that D-Rod lost that fight to Li Jingliang. It was extremely close. So, and Li Jingliang had to go through a weight cut that D-Rod didn't have to. So now you have to add that weight cut in there against a healthier Neil Magny. Neil Magny coming off, he's going to have 4 months removed from, he got choked out by Shavkat Rakhmonov, but I think ultimately that was a positive move for him. Or should I say a positive showing for him against Shavkat Rakhmonov, considering how good and how highly everybody thinks of Shavkat. So for those reasons, going Neil Magny by decision.
All very fair logic. I'm not disagreeing with you at all, but it's not like we haven't seen Neil Magny lose to guys that are smaller than him in the past, with less reach. I just, I don't know.
He lost to Chiesa in a largely, a grappling bout. And also Chiesa did better on the feet than they had thought. But, Neil Magny was winning those feet exchanges against Michael Chiesa. It was on the ground where Neil Magny really lost that round or lost the few rounds that ended up losing him the fight. And then, against Shavkat Rakhmonov. But when it really comes to feet, he's got wins over Robbie Lawler by decision. Jeff Neal was a really close fight when he won by decision. And, Max Payne Griffin, able to fight off some of the, the ground games by a very, very strong Max Griffin and keep that fight and get the win. So I just feel a lot more comfortable with Neil Magny. And then when you consider the caliber of fighters that he loses to, I mean, you're talking about Shavkat Rakhmonov, and you're talking about Michael Chiesa. Maybe he's on the same level as D-Rod, just different caliber of areas where he's good at. But listen, I like D-Rod a lot too. But considering what he was, the real differentiator for me is considering what he was saying about the shots that he was taking from Li Jingliang and the quick turnaround, and then the differences in the weight that he's going to have to cut. I mean, I guess he's used to that 170, but Neil Magny is going to be a little bit longer, and it's going to be hard for D-Rod to execute his game plan, trying to get past 6 inches of reach.
Yeah, no, I feel that. All right, main event time. Trying to keep this one short and sweet for the peeps at home. We've got Marina Rodriguez versus Amanda Lemos, and I'm going with Marina Rodriguez. She's got a lot of good victories recently. Win over Yan Xiaonan, Mackenzie Dern, Michelle Watterson, okay, karate hottie. She actually has a win over Amanda Ribas back in 2021, which I forgot about. Close split decision loss to the division champion, Carla Esparza. So, she's basically moving her way up to potentially fight for a belt. And then you have Amanda Ribas, who in her, I guess it was second to last fight, the loss to, I'm sorry, I'm saying Amanda Ribas. It's Amanda Lemos. Anyways, the loss to Jessica Andrade in the main event of that UFC Fight Night with the standing arm triangle choke was an embarrassment to the sport and to women's MMA in general, I believe. So I have a really hard time picking Amanda Lemos after that. I really like Marina Rodriguez's style. I think she's got it on her feet. She's got it on the ground. She's not hard to look at. So with all that being said, I am going with Marina Rodriguez over Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos just kind of showed she just doesn't have it, I don't think. I mean, she's got some good victories, but that standing arm triangle choke, sure, it's Jessica Andrade. She's a beast, but
yeah, that one I'm talking up to Jessica Andrade more than Amanda Lemos.
Yeah,
Amanda Lemos, she's shown power before, and she turned around and she got that submission win over Michelle Karate Hottie Watterson.
Yeah,
her last name.
Jiu-jitsu,
Watterson Gomez now. Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't really have any jiu-jitsu though, but
true.
I don't think anybody should be getting caught in that and be in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, I'm not in the UFC, but I guarantee you I would have gotten caught by that. Jessica Andrade would absolutely Rogan has a funny joke about Brock Lesnar saying I'm not concerned that he would fuck me. I'm concerned that he would use me as a condom to fuck someone else. And I can say similar things about what do you call it? About Jessica Andrade. I think Jessica, she is so brolic that she could absolutely throw me over a wall if she chose to. That being said, props to Amanda Lemos for getting in the cage with her. But I think Marina Rodriguez is going to get this one done. She's got far better grappling, and I think she is adept enough on the feet. It's not her strongest point, but I think she's adept enough to be able to avoid whatever Amanda Lemos may throw back at her to try and knock her out. I think Lemos' only path to victory is via KO, and Marina Rodriguez, it's a lot safer and probably a lot more probable that she's going to be able to take down Amanda Lemos, capitalize on some of that faulty ground game, some of those bad decision making, or just lack of defense that allowed her to get triangle submission standing by Jessica Andrade. So Marina Rodriguez by submission. I would say maybe second, third round.
I like that pick a lot. I like Marina Rodriguez's style. She's got that very shoot the box style, walks down, head very buried down, kind of slouched over, hands up at all times. and just uses really intelligent striking. And then when it goes to the ground, it's her game. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, the battle that she had on the feet, standing with Yan to get a split decision, speaks to her standing ability. Mackenzie Dern being able to, go on the ground with her and knowing what Mackenzie's going to want to do to her, negating that, and then having to fight. A lot of people are very high on Mackenzie Dern, so, she's got a lot better competition here. She did better, obviously, against, she didn't do better that, she didn't do better against Michelle Watterson than Amanda Lemos did. Amanda Lemos obviously finishing her. But I think that just speaks to a little bit more of like the style of fight. It was more of a stand and bang fight than more of a technical fight. But either way, I think Marina Rodriguez is going to get this one done. Both women about the same size, about the same age too. Both Brazilians as well.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Brazilian main event, and I think Marina Rodriguez is going to get it done. A lot of people looking at Tapology think she's going to get it done by decision. But just knowing her history, I think there's a chance for that finish, second, third, maybe fourth round, especially as Lemos gets tired. Has Lemos been in a 5-rounder? Has she gone 5 rounds?
I don't think she's gone a full 5 yet. The only 5-rounder that comes to mind for me is the one against Jessica Andrade.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, I don't think so. But that was ended, in what round? Round 1, first round.
Yeah. And I mean, you're also talking about and Amanda Lemos going to a split decision, 3 5-minute rounds, but split decision with Angela Hill. I'm not convinced that Angela Hill is as good as some people would describe her to be in a UFC kind of type of context, but I think Marina Rodriguez got this one. I feel pretty safe about that.
Yeah, so I feel really good about it.
Yeah, you could probably, honestly, the safe pick is Marina Rodriguez by decision or submission.
Yeah, potentially, but I do think that she has like legitimate finishing power on her feet as well. She almost finished Yan Jianan. Like if that was a 5-round fight, I think, and those two women kept scrapping, I think maybe Marina Rodriguez could have gotten it done on her feet.
Yeah, but one credit there that I have to give to Yan Jianan will scrap though. She'll go in there and she'll throw. I don't think Amanda Lemos is going to go in there and throw with the same reckless abandon and disregard that Yan Jianan will. But either way, I think Marina Rodriguez is going to get this done. What are the odds looking like for that? Is she a huge favorite?
Right now, hold up.
Minus 210.
Yeah, minus 210 is not bad. I would take that straight regardless because, great pick. I think Marina Rodriguez is this week. And at minus 210, that's a high value favorite still, for like the that comes out. Somebody calling you?
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll wrap this up now then with our pick rundown. So, cue the music. All right. Prelim lock. I've got a parlay. That is Pascual and Vidal, the prelim opener. Jinyu Frey and Viana, another prelim fight. And Miranda Maverick. Oh, I'm sorry. So those first two to end by decision. The third leg in that parlay, Miranda Maverick to beat Shanna Young by submission. For the main card, I'm rolling with Jailton Almeida, Mark O. Madsen, Tagir Ulanbekov, Josh Parisian, Daniel Rodriguez, and Marina Rodriguez. What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I'm following you on your prelim. I'm going to add Jake Hadley there. But I like your parlay of Jinyu Frey and Poliana Viana going to decision, Ramona Pascual and Tamiris Vidal going to decision, and Miranda Maverick via submission over Shanna Young, first or second round too, if you want to get a little extra frisky on that. Going up to the main card, I like Jailton Almeida over Maxim Grishin. I like that one to finish by decision. Remember, Grishin is coming in at 265. At 38 years old, when he's historically been a 205er, Jailton Almeida is muscled up. I don't think Jailton is going to have any issues. He's going to run right through him. Speaking of people that aren't going to, or I guess on the opposite of that, not having issue, not running right through, I think we're going to have a highly contested grappling match between Mark Madsen and Grant Dawson, in which I think Grant Dawson's a little bit more well-rounded and a little bit younger. I think he's going to get the win there, probably by decision. Tagir Ulanbekov, I believe, is going to get the win over Nate Maness, who's coming down from 45, 40, 35, and now to 25 at 31, 32 years of age after a bad showing. previously. I like Tagir, Ulanbekov to get it done, and as long as there's no glove grabbing involved. Josh Parisian and Chase Sherman in a battle at the bottom of the division of the heavyweights. I like Josh Parisian to get it done, but ultimately Jailton Almeida can take out Maxim Grishin and then go and fight Josh Parisian and Chase Sherman and take both of them out. He could have 3 fights in one night and leave relatively unscathed, I believe. Magny, I think, is going to get it done from range on the outside against the very boxing-heavy style of Marina Rodriguez, who's coming off a fight against Li Jingliang. Li Jingliang, where he was talking about how rattled and how powerful Li's punches are. So I don't like that quick turnaround for him against the volume striker Magny, who's got cardio for not days, not months, but years and centuries at a time. And then we talk about Marina Rodriguez and Amanda Lemos. We just went on and on about it. I like Marina Rodriguez for the versatility and the way that she can get it done. So Marina Rodriguez is my pick, and that's your pick rundown for UFC Fight Night Rodriguez versus Lemos.
Nice. I feel really good about the Rodriguez pick. All right, like, comment, subscribe, please. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram @_PickinWinners, as well as I am @PickinKeith and Tom is @Pickin Fights Tom. Listen to us on Spotify if you cannot listen to or watch a full YouTube video. If you are listening to us on Spotify right now, thank you.
We appreciate you.
Yes. Leave us a comment. We didn't get any comments today. Leave us a comment in the comment section, the live chat. We respond to our live chat. We love doing that. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you to the people watching as well as to my friend Tom. Really appreciate having you all here on this Sunday. There's a lot of football to watch. Let's have fun. Drink some beers, eat some wings. And for football picks, make sure you tune into Pickin 6 with Tyler. And check out the blog we're about to write for menoborder.com. All right. Thank you very much.
Take it easy. Happy Sunday.
See you.